and I will be the moderator for today following the first 2 days. My name is Kyung-an Hong, an art critic. And from April 19th, we had in-depth discussions about climate change, as well as how art and culture can contribute to a sustainable future. And today we're going to have the last day of the 3-day event, and we have keynote conversation in store for you. For the past 2 days, we had very interesting discussions. So to summarize a little bit of what we discussed, so Professor Kwak Jae-sik of Sungsil University actually talked about climate change and art. He gave a keynote speech. And on the second day, Adrienne Gödler from Germany talked about examples to follow towards a fund in aesthetics and sustainability. And Geller mentioned about the actors or network or the agency's network and the importance of networking and how the actors of the arts and the community, cultural community, should collaborate to provide some very hybrid good examples. And she also mentioned about the negative effects of capitalism and its consequences. And today, as the finale of our 3-day event, we have Mr. Samuel Valensi, who is responsible for the cultural sector of the Shift project, who's going to talk about the carbon footprint of the arts. I look very much forward to the keynote presentation. And after the keynote presentation, we're going to have a short conversation. So now we are going to invite through Zoom Mr. Samuel Valensi for his presentation.
Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for the introduction. I will try to share my screen. Tell me if it's working. Does it work for you all? I can't access the chat while checking the screen, so if someone can answer, that would be great. Okay, it's working. Thank you very much, everyone. So, okay, today I will try to share with you the work I did with the Shift project during the last 2 years, almost. So I will first start by introducing myself and tell you that before working on the carbon footprint of the cultural sector, I'm a stage director. I founded a theater troupe called La Poursuite du Bleu, The Pursuit of Blue, literally speaking. So I'm stage director, writer, sometimes I'm a comedian as well. And because I was getting more and more involved into the carbon footprint, but more generally the environmental footprint of my own work, as also it is one of the main aspects of my artistic work, one of the main topic I'm talking about. The Shift project, who saw my work, proposed me to participate to a plan to transform the French economy and decarbonize it. That was the plan, just that. So the Shift project is a non-profit working mostly on lightning and trying to give a clear understanding of what is at stake when we talk about climate and energy. So that's what I'm working on with the Shift project. And as I was saying, 2 years ago, the Shift project decided to launch a big project that we called the Plan for Transforming the French Economy. And the main goal was to work in any sector that could be concerned by climate, which means almost everything. So we worked on very classical issues like agriculture, buildings, transportations, and so on. But we also worked on services like public administration that concerns you specifically, but also on culture and also on health, for example. And I was in charge of the part concerning culture. I would just like to say before starting that I'm giving classes on these topics, production of performing art and how to decarbonize culture in different schools that you see on the right of the screen. So this is the program what I will try to show you today. I understood from what Mr. Hong said at the very beginning that you already had some introduction to what is going on with climate and energy, but I will make a very quick introduction about that. And after I will talk about the role that plays culture in the middle of it. So the first thing I'd like to say is we have an issue which could be summed up as a climate and energy issue. Because all our activities depends on what we could call a double pressure, a double constraint. What does it mean exactly? It means that nowadays, more than 80% of the energy we consumed every day is from fossil fuels. That's what it means. And the first pressure is that these fossil fuels are called fossil because they need a very, very long period to shape themselves, to create themselves. Millions of years, between 20 and 200 millions of years to shape oil, gas, and coal. That's why they are getting increasingly rare. Since 2008, we faced the peak oil. So it means that nowadays, the conventional fuel has a production that is decreasing by 9% a year, every year. And you have the source here. So what it means basically is that we will spend more and more energy in order to find new supplies. And the more energy we spend to find new supplies, and the less it's interesting to get this energy from the ground. So first, about conventional fuel, yes, the peak oil was in 2008, and it's now decreasing very fast, sorry. And on the unconventional fuel, the one that needs fracking in order to be accessed to be used, this one is decreasing in the US starting this year and will be decreasing worldwide in 2025, according to the International Agency for Energy. So it clearly means that this will be a challenge, whatever happens. It means that transition will be organized or will be faced anyway. And at the same time, the production of energy worldwide is growing very, very fast. And as you can see, the three main growing parts are gas, coal, and oil, specifically with the industrialization of China and India. So this is what we have to face. And on the other hand, so I was talking about the fact that fossil fuel are getting rare, but also it's causing global warming, as you know. And why so? Because however we use them, they emit different kind of gases. And these gases could be summed up as CO2, the one we talk about mostly when we talk about climate change, and the CO2 has a very specific, a very precise specificity, which is that when you emit CO2 today, you will change the climate for a very long period, because the CO2 that is emitted by a car going around my street now will stay in the atmosphere. You will find 10% of it in the atmosphere in 10,000 years. So it basically means that there is a very long period of time during which the CO2 that we emit will have effects. And you have other gases like the CH4, methane, which is well known because it comes mostly from the animals we grow and we feed, and also from the rice culture. So these are the two main sources. You have also the, I don't know how to say this in English, N2O, but mostly coming from the grounds and the industrial agriculture. And you have also the refrigerating gases that we use. And these gases, they all have a long period they all stay for a long period in the atmosphere, and mostly they have different powers on the climate change. So, for example, CHO is 25 more warming climate than CO2, and N2O is more than 300 times warming climate more than CO2. So, just to give you some scales. And what we see on this graphic I showed you just before is that there is no substitution. The fact that we are using new energies that we call renewable looks more like an addition to the previous energies we were using. Today, what we see is that we add more and more energies to the ones we were using as fossil fuels. So we are not decreasing globally the energy we use. Why? Why so? Why did we change so much the energy around us? Because we're working with more and more machines around us. And that started somewhere like 10,000 years ago. We had just our strength, and we add to this strength the strength of animals that we used for agriculture. And during the last 2,000 years, what we mostly developed were renewable energies. We were using boats using wind, wood, perfectly renewable, energy from water as well. So we were using what we would call perfectly renewable energies. What changed during the last 2 centuries is that we are using more and more machines. These machines are not using this kind of energies, they are using fossil fuel. And why did we do that? Because to make it simple, with the strength of our arms in a day, even the sportiest person in the room could bring the energy, enough energy to light the ball light in his living room. As simple as that. And if you're using your legs, you would bring enough energy. You would produce enough energy to light the same ball light approximately all day long, and that's it. And if you would have to be paid to do so, you would produce a kilowatt-hour, so 1,000 watts, for 200 euros. Thanks to oil, we have that power in just 10 liters. And according to the cost, this is the division we made by choosing oil. So having all these machines, around 500 machines per person in France, having all these machines working around us, thanks to oil, multiplied our power by something like 500. That's the very comfortable thing that brought the different fossil fuels I was talking about. So just to give you a few examples, here are the powers that some workers have around them. If you're in agriculture, you're working with 600 pairs of legs every day with your truck. If you're a truck driver on the road, you use the power of 4,000 pairs of legs every day. And if you're piloting a plane, you use 1 million pairs of legs every day. That's what we have in our hands nowadays, thanks to oil, gas, and coal. But we're fine because the Paris Agreement saved us, of course. But actually, the Paris Agreement is a real challenge, and we'll discuss this challenge during a few minutes now. The Paris Agreement is showing us a line that we shouldn't cross. This line is 2 degrees of global warming from 1860 to 2100. So it's a challenge because it means that because CO2 stays for a while in the atmosphere, we shouldn't overpass 3,000 gigatons of CO2 emitted. And there is already 2,250 gigatons emitted during this period. So it means basically that we'll have to make choices. What you see up here, I'm sorry if it's still in French, I couldn't translate that graphic, but what you see up in here is that on average, a French person emits around 10, 11 tons of CO2 per year. And if we follow the line of Paris Agreement, we should be around 2. So it's a challenge. We need to reorganize many, many activities. And we have to do so because if we don't, we will follow, according to the IPCC, something like a 4-degree global warming. And 4 degrees means that a third of the planet would be uninhabitable. So that's what says the University of Hawaii, for example. So it means that we must change. We have to organize this change. And also, if we don't follow these 2 degrees, but we would live in a world reaching 3 degrees of global warming in 2100, we would be facing food supply instabilities all around the world. That's what says also the IPCC. So basically, it means that 2 degrees is really the limit we shouldn't overpass, clearly. So even at 2 degrees, we will face, for example, the rising of sea levels in a way that we have a hard time imagining nowadays. But just to give you an example, 1 million of French people will be directly concerned by the rise of seawaters in 2050. So tomorrow, we could say. And this is a picture of the north of the threat in the north of Europe in 2050 as well. I gave you the source down here on where you can have a look on this. So we need a plan. We need a plan, and that's why the Shift project is working on that plan for 2 years now. The idea mostly is how do we organize our society to respect the Paris Agreement that we proposed to ourselves. Respecting the Paris Agreements mean decreasing our CO2 emissions by 5% a year till 2050, and after that reaching carbon neutrality, which is a challenge. So how do we do that? And is culture a part of that? Clearly, culture is a part of that issue, and that's what I will try to show you during the next minutes. So how do we see culture? Generally, when we talk about culture, we talk about the part of French GDP, 2.3%. We talk about its production per year. We talk about the active population, around 650,000 people working for culture daily and directly. So I'm not talking about the indirect people employed thanks to culture. I'll give a few examples of that, but what these figures don't say is the connections between culture and the rest of the economies. I'll give you a few examples here. Imagine, for example, the Festival d'Avignon. Imagine the city without the festival. So clearly, all the hotels in the city would lose 60% of their turnover. So it means there is a strong connection sometimes between culture and the rest of the economy. I'll give you other example. For example, tourism is 8% of the French GDP, but what would be tourism without the French culture, without the French patrimony, for example, without the French museums? For sure, it wouldn't be 8%. 5.5% of the French GDP is the digital economy. But actually, almost everything that we consumed on the internet is culture. That's what I will show you after. So what these figures don't say is that wherever we look, we will see that culture is very dependent on many other sectors of the economy, and this dependence goes both ways. So this is the usual overview we have about energy and climate. We look at the carbon footprint of people, and we see that there are, for example, transportations, what we eat, the way we live, and so on. But we don't see clearly cultures, except sometimes in this graphic, which is in French, but I didn't find it in English, leisures, for example, and we think it's that. So we have the illusion that culture is not a big part of the problem, that if culture will do something, it's only by proposing fictions, which will help us inventing a new word where to live. And as I'm a playwright, scenarist, I'm happy about that. And I'm thrilled about that. And I hope that we will find fictions that will change the world for sure. But what if those fictions were produced in a way that is not desirable in that world? What if those fictions were produced in a very, how can I say, consuming energy way? So how do we shift that? And what if those fictions couldn't be produced anymore because the model that we use for producing these fictions is at risk because we depend too much on oil, on gas, on coal? That's what I will explain right after that. So the work I will show you now is clearly taken from the report we produced, Decarbonizing Culture, in order to lighten the carbon footprint of the art. I'll give you just a few examples. When we talk about agriculture, we don't talk about cultural events, for example, but there is a major part of the carbon footprint for cultural event, which directly comes from agriculture. If you have a look at a big festival, like the Festival des Vieilles Charrues in Bretagne, you will see that, for example, the food, just the food given to the 300,000 viewers looks like more than 2,000 tons of CO2. Basically, it means 2,000 travel by plane from Paris to New York, from New York to Paris. That's what it means. So it's a huge impact, clearly. When you have a look on buildings and energy, when you talk about culture, you have to check all the places that have the French minister label, and that means thousands and thousands of buildings. And I could tell you that they are not easy to renovate, to diminish, sorry, the level of energy they're using. I could give you a few examples about that. This is the carbon footprint of national stage in French. I can tell you which one, but the thing you have to check is on the right, 51% of the carbon footprint, which is around 1,000 tons per year. 51% is coming directly from the energy used by the room to make it warmer or cooler during the year. And it mostly comes from the gas and the fuel used to warm the building, mostly. When you look at the transports, for example, well, culture, sorry, there are some French words in the middle, but culture and leisures are the third source of daily mobilities for French people. So if you don't face how people are going to see culture, you don't face transport in France. This is an extract from the report we produced, and what you can see here, the three first bars in this graph, they are showing you the impact of mobilities for viewers in a big festival, of mobilities for artistic team, and mobilities for the scenographies during a festival. So clearly what we saw during the report is that thanks to the many interviews we had with professionals, clearly the transportations of viewers, of teams, artistic teams, and of scenographies is clearly the biggest impact you could get in a festival. And just to give you an idea, if 3% of the viewers from a festival choose plane in order to come because they come from a foreign country, they will represent more than 60% of the carbon footprint of viewers' transportation. So it gives you an idea of the connection between how much you need foreign viewers and how you will be dependent on fossil fuel nowadays. Same thing when we look on the internet and have a look about what is the stream useful for. And actually culture is everywhere, absolutely everywhere. When you look on the right here, you have 30% of the internet stream that is clearly used for watching Netflix and the rest of VOD, the rest of video, paying TV, paying broadcast, and so on. You can add almost 10% for video games and Twitch. You can add another 10% for YouTube, Vimeo, and so on. You can add 0.5% on musical streaming. All this, it's culture, industrial culture, cinema, and so on. And you can add also pornography, which is more than 20%. So it's a hotly debated topic, but actually pornography is a part of culture in France because it's production and edition of audiovisual contents. And in others here, 28.5%, we should have a look on the social networks about all the artistic productions, and we don't have the numbers. We don't even have the part of the stream which is dedicated to perform music or art on the social networks. So that would be an interesting part as well of the impact. So if we must change transportations, mobilities, buildings, industry, energy, digital technologies, we have to change culture. Otherwise, we decide that all the figures I just shown you are showing a risk, but we will not take it into account, and we'll wait for the problem to be present for culture. We will wait for the risk to be how can I say this? We will wait for the moment we will have to face a lack of oil, a lack of fossil fuel, for example, or impossibilities to continue our job. So the thing I would like to say here is that all the work we are producing at the SHIFT project is made in order to protect the people working in this industry. Because if we don't face these problems, if we don't organize the transition, as we say, the transition will organize the sector by itself because of the constraints, the pressure I was talking at the beginning of the presentation. So culture is at risk. It's exposed to the double carbon pressure I introduced you at the beginning, the lack of oil on one side and the climate change on the other side. And it's also exposed to pandemics. That's what also the figures show perfectly, because when you have a close look, for example, when you have a look at the Musée du Louvre, it's the public establishment which has the biggest carbon footprint to our knowledge. And it's also the public establishment which receive the more subventions to face the pandemic. So there is a strong connection between carbon footprint and exposure and risks, generally speaking. Why? Because carbon footprint tells you how much you depend on foreign viewers, foreign work, and so on. So it's not a bad thing, but when it goes with that intensity, then you will have a problem with the sustainability of your production model. So risks can be measured. They can be measured thanks to the carbon footprint I was showing you, but they can be measured generally by the dependence that we have on distant streams, and it goes as well for audience and material. So just to give you a few examples, these are the rise in the number of viewers at different festivals. Here is Les Vieilles Charrues, and in 20 years, the gauge was multiplied by almost 15, a few thousand people in 1996, and during the last edition, it was around 300,000 people. I did the same comparison with the Hellfest and with the festival Wheel of Green. And what we see is that the intensity I was talking about is rising and rising. And the thing is, the more the size of your event is growing, the more you will depend on a distant audience to fulfill the room, to fulfill the event, to fill up the artistic event that you will have. So we can talk about this, but what we see is that the more the event is growing, the faster the emissions are growing as well. So cultural actors are at risk, and they don't measure it because from the interviews we had, only 7% of them have been trained to these problems. So basically, they don't make the right decisions because they don't know how to measure the problem. It's very hard to make the right decision when you don't know perfectly the problem. So it must change. We need to reorganize our activities if we want to be able to face the risk I was talking about. And I think the two main parts we must work on is first the training of current and future staffs, because if we don't work on that, it's almost impossible to imagine public policies. I will give you an example. Imagine that you want to give a subventions according to sustainable behaviors. All right, but who will follow, who will track that the behaviors you're talking about are sustainable? Who will do the carbon footprint? Who will follow the right KPIs? So this is quite impossible, except if people are trained. And it goes as well for the public administration giving subventions as for the producers themselves. And from that, you can imagine ambitious public policies, and I can give you a few examples at the end of our discussion. So the trends to follow that we overlaid during the report are the 5 next coming now. First, relocating activities as much as we can. It doesn't mean that we won't have international exchanges anymore. Clearly we can. And I will give you examples of artists who invented new ways to travel and make their work travel around the world without going as fast as they were before. And they invented new ways of touring their performances. It also means that we need to slow down on many things. I was talking about, for example, the intensity of production. And clearly what we saw in many museums around the world is that this intensity is growing and growing. And of course, it requires more and more physical streams, clearly. So more and more footprints. We also need sometimes to subdivide the capacities because when you think about an event with oil cheap and affordable and easy to access, then you completely forget about the impact. Because when you build, for example, the Festival des Vieilles Charrues, which welcomed 300,000 people in a place which is not correctly served by the public transport, clearly you will need carbonized transport. So what we ask for is to subdivide events in order to work with a more local audience. So this is a big change, I know, but we gave some figures about it. We made some modelization about it, and clearly what we saw is that the more a festival is connected to his local ground, to his local territories, the less the carbon footprints are. Eco-designing the scenographies, as you maybe saw during the previous slides, transporting the artwork is one of the main parts of the carbon footprint of cultural events and venues. So it means that from the very beginning, you have to think all the impacts that a scenography could have. And we also need to give up a few practices and opportunities. For example, a practice that is very common, when you have a very big capacity to fulfill, you will ask the exclusivity of the artist coming to your festival or to your event. And so you will prevent these artists from touring locally. So you will pressure them into moving far right after the event. So this goes with the very high growth of the carbon footprint. So I'll go fast on that, but the thing is, with the report, what we did is imagining what we could do tomorrow without changing anything in our job. We call that transparent measures. So, for example, changing the diet, changing the food you're serving to your audience is not a big change. It doesn't change your work. It changes relations to some suppliers, but that's it. And it can have a big impact. If a festival would shift from a meat-based alimentation to a vegetarian alimentation, it could divide by 10 or 12 the footprint from this one. I'll give you a few examples if we have the time, if it's okay for you. Just a few examples of what people are currently doing in culture. So for example, at the Opéra de Lyon, there is a tool called EDEOS, and this tool is calculating the impact on health, on CO2 emissions, and on biodiversity that any set design created in the place could have. And the tool now is currently used in order to measure the impact of every set design, and soon it will be used to clear a trajectory, a target to reduce the carbon footprint. So what is interesting with this tool? It's a tool. It can be useful in order to make decisions. It doesn't make the decisions for you. But just to give you an example, sometimes you have impact transfers. So to give you an idea, for example, in my own theater troupe, we produced a play thinking that it was a great idea to take only bio-sourced decors. So we had a beautiful wooden decors, and clearly it was beautiful to look. Everything was bought in second hand, so we didn't buy anything new. To say differently, we didn't cut any tree in order to make that set design, but we had a very heavy set design, very complicated to tour, and we needed more vehicles to tour it than for the previous set design. So it was a mistake, but we learned. And now what we do, I will explain it to you after, is that we think about the volume and the weight of the set design first. And it's one of the first conditions. Also, even if any set design is unique, you can clearly imagine that we could normalize, that we could standardize a few parts of the set design. For example, the structures on which we put screens, for example, the structures on which we could use some tissue. For example, the linen that you will use on stage will be carried by the same structure in any opera in the world. And that's what some project like Oscar, for example, is working on. That's also what the Festival Dex of Opera is working on. So in my own theater troupe, we are working, for example, what you see behind us as screens. And these screens are 2 meters high, but they are thought so that they can be unset very, very fast. And the final size of everything clearly is just as big as a 6 cube meters vehicle. So the smallest vehicle you can imagine to move your set design. And this has a very big impact on the touring of the shows. And also the weight is at the minimal, and we don't buy anything new. That's one of the main involvement of the troupe. And this eco-designing set design has a clear impact on the touring and the carbon footprint of the show. I was talking about relocation that doesn't pressure us into giving up international touring. Jérôme Bell is a choreographer, and for example, he gave up flying, even if it was internationally well-known. He decided to, when he has a proposal to tour one of his shows, he decides to send videos of the rehearsals to another choreographer somewhere else in the world. So now there are shows of Jérôme Bell touring in the US by train, and they were recreated by choreographers in the US. thanks to rehearsals with Skype or Zoom. This is an example of what we could do also. I didn't find how to translate ressourcerie, so I will let you have a look, but more and more structures are creating nowadays in France in order to have, how can I say, a collection of items and structures that you can use to produce set design in many theaters. And this is very precious because you can find in secondhand anywhere the materials you would need to create the next show, and that's precious. This is something special we did also in order to relocate the links that we create with our shows. We create our own local currency with the theater troupe I manage. Well, what we did is that we have an agreement with very involved stores in Paris, around Paris, and they accept the tickets for the plays as a local currency. In exchange, they give a discount or products to our viewers. This is an agreement we made. So we transform the tickets for the show into a local currency. I was also talking about slowing down. There are now public venues in Paris who gave up about producing artwork, and now they are just producing moments. The artists coming at La Maison des Métallos in Paris, they don't have the obligation to produce a show. They have the obligation to produce links between people and non-profits around the theater and the theater. That's what they are used for. So it's another way of producing, less intensive, as I was talking about before, but it brings also a new mindset, very interesting on carbon footprint. Always on slowing down, and I will after stop with these examples because I'm afraid we'll be maybe short on time. But always on slowing down, just to give you an example, the troupe called Organic Orchestra is moving with an eco-design set. And this eco-design set is, how can I explain this? Using just 1 kilowatt of energy on tour for each show, so less than your oven for an hour in your kitchen, for example. And just to give you an idea, this show only tours with bicycle. So they have the involvement of the engagement of the territory to tour the show for 8, 9, 10 performances, and then they go to this place and they tour only in the territory, in the area where they targeted to tour by bike. So it's a big change. Okay, I will go fast on this. Maybe we can take time to discuss. But what I would like to share with you is that when there is a systemic problem, it requires systemic changes. That sometimes you will hear solutions that look too easy, and if the solution is too easy, maybe it doesn't fit. And I think that if we really need to reorganize the work we have, then it should take time, reorganization, planification. And this is something that is sometimes going against the way we imagined our model. So it requires a long talk and plans. I'm always saying that if the discussion is pleasant, maybe it's because you are surrounded by a very pleasant person, but I would also say change the discussion because maybe you're not talking about what's really important on carbon footprint. Thank you very much. I can talk after, if we have time, on the impact of culture on the internet, on digital structure, and also about greenwashing, but maybe it's the right moment to exchange together, to talk together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the topic itself is very vast, and it cannot be addressed in depth in just 20 to 30 minutes. but the contents were very enriching, and I think it made us reflect about what issues that we have to think about more. And since Samuel's presentation was a little bit long, but we still have time for conversation, maybe for about 10 minutes. So everyone who's joining us for Making Lemonade 2.0 are well aware, I believe, about the sustainability of arts and culture, and that's the path we need to take. And I think a lot of our participants are already aware of that. And Samuel, you mentioned about the 2 degrees increase, which is very threatening for mankind. And I think that we really have to be keen on this temperature, and we also have to think hard about the mankind's survival, including the pandemic that we are witnessing. And in our industry, or in our sector, or the industries actually, they seem like they're not very much interested in reducing CO2. So for example, there are some natural issues that arise from climate change, but we also need to expand these issues into like ethics, morality, and also political ecology. And these are discussed as like theories by a few, and these topics are not really much addressed in depth. So in arts and culture, why do we have to think about ecological transition, and how can we share this sense of urgency among ourselves? Artists, I would like to ask this question to you, Samuel.
The first thing is that I think both are essential. I think that you can imagine addressing these issues at the same time with the role of artists, what they can change in our imagination, in the way we imagine and talk and understand and think these topics, and at the same time working on the, let's say, more rational aspects. And I think that when you choose to work on rational aspects like CO2 emissions, like the carbon footprints, you already chose an ethic. I'm always saying I'm not counting CO2. I'm worried about my little sister. It's not about the CO2, the carbon footprint. Carbon footprint is just a tool to say that you are more worried about climate than economics, for example. So I think both are communicating. And I clearly think that, yes, artists can, of course, have a specific role in this transition to imagine something that is different, to imagine a foreseeable future, to imagine a sustainable future. Yes, but they also have a specific role. It's their exemplarity. Young people are watching on their Instagram the artists they love, on the social networks, they are following them, and they are getting also inspired by their daily behaviors. So if their daily behaviors is taking plane every 2 days to go from a venue to another, touring their shows internationally with trucks and so on, one day or another, they will say that this doesn't look like a bright example. So we have to work both ways.
Yes, so we needed to also be aware of some of the entertainment companies that requested some eco-friendly labels. So as you mentioned, I think that we need to lead by example, and we need artists at the forefront of such movement. And I'm very much looking forward to such a future. Now moving on to the next question. Can you please hold a second? Can you please give me 20 seconds? Because my laptop froze. I'm sorry about that. Yes. So I have one more question. In the context of the present, the COVID-19 caused lockdown and online content actually increased exponentially as a result. You talked about digital landscape, and when it comes to digital pollution and the environment, do you think that going digital can be an answer to that, the solution to that? Well, there are countries that are trying to return to normalcy. And what about the digital environment? We believe that the digital landscape might decline a little bit. So, what do you think the post pandemic will have in terms of implications going forward?
The first thing is that digital is just a tool. It's a tool and it has to stay a tool. It shouldn't be something we would imagine as divine and like a magic solution to all of our problems, clearly. And in the matter of climate change, it's not an obvious solution, not at all. Clearly, it was a precious tool, and it is a precious tool during pandemics, for example, in order to imagine how to continue having some activities in the artistic world. Okay, all right, but this is not this is a bandage. This is not a proper solution. It's not facing the real problem. We're not facing the source of the problem. We're not reorganizing things. Digital has already a big carbon footprint. It's 4% of the global carbon footprint, of the global carbon emissions. And this is divided in two parts. First part is the material productions, the devices production that requires a lot of metals in order to be produced. And just to give you an example, the lithium that is in my computer battery is a material that you will find at a gram or a tenth of gram per ton of material, sorry, I don't know how to say this in English, terre, of ground, I don't know how to say this, sorry, of soil, sorry. So it means that you need, just to get 1 gram, to destroy 10 tons of soil. This is what it means. So it has a huge impact. And on the other side, you have all the impact of the users we have. And clearly on this culture is already the first impact on the users. And what's going on with culture is that we are developing heavier and heavier formats. For example, when you have a look on videos, 10 years ago, the standard definition was what we were calling HD ready. HD ready is the 720 pixels quality that you have on YouTube nowadays. And this looks like, just for a movie, something like a giga of data. And nowadays, the format we are using, like 4K or 8Ks, they are using between 50 and 160 gigas. So there we require more networks, networks that are more powerful, like 5G, like fiber, and so on. And when you create those new networks, you create new cultural users, and these new cultural users will require new capacities. So this is the role that culture plays online. So to me, it doesn't look like the digital will be a solution to the problem we face. It can be a tool. Sometimes it's a great tool. I was showing you how Jérôme Bell is touring his show internationally thanks to digital. Sometimes it's a precious tool, but it doesn't address the source of the problem.
Yes, so You've shared with us a lot of thoughts about how digital is just a means and cannot be a solution now. Moving on to the next question. In architecture, distribution, retail, I think that we have to have a sense of urgency and about the environment, and we have to take action. You also mentioned about the importance of training and education, educating the professionals of this sector. So what is the most, if we have to choose one option that is most effective and efficient, so in other words, what should we do right now as a start for artists? What should be the first thing that we need to start right now?
Try something. I will say it that way because if you start trying, if you start first learning and then trying, if you start learning the problem and you try something at your own scale, you will face the problems that you cannot address by yourself. And if you do that, you have the solid ground you need to make the problem politic, to address political issues, to say, okay, this is the public policies we need in order to move on, in order to face the next step. So, for example, when you are an artist and you start today, or when you are directing a cultural structure and you start today, you can shift from meat-based alimentation to a vegetarian or a more vegetarian alimentation. It won't change your work, it won't do anything. But changing the way you tour your show, clearly, or you tour the artist that you like or want to program in your venue or in your structure, this is a change of this is a game changer. This is a clear and a huge change of your organization. So you will need to learn people how to do. You will need to make mistakes to understand what you were not doing correctly and what you should do differently. You will need to get into networks. So I would say learn and try. Learn the problem and try solutions. That's the way we will make the problem political, and we will reach things at our scale and make things move at the political scale.
Yes, so even if we go through trial and error, we have to try and we have to keep trying. And I think that is the attitude that we need to learn from you. And Lemonade Conference can also serve as an opportunity to encourage such a discussion. So you also have a theater. You founded a theater and you're a writer, and you're also responsible for the Shift project. And I felt like you were an activist at the same time. Anyways, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Valensi. I look forward to meeting with you next time and have a more dense conversation. But in the interest of time, we have to wrap up our keynote conversation. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Valensi.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the interpretation.
네.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Valensi. And thank you very much, virtual audience, as well as the audience here in person for your time. Now we will see more innovative ideas during showcase number 3, so please stay with us. And Mr. Hojun will also present Miyeok Graffiti. So I very much look forward to the performance. And I know him well, but I've never heard of this work, so I very much look forward to this work. Anyway, enjoy your evening. Thank you. Welcome back to Making Lemonade Towards a Sustainable Future for the Arts. My name is Lee Jung-woo. I'll be moderator of Showcase number 3. We have civic groups and startup personnels who will talk about some of the best practices and innovative solutions to fighting climate change. We have with us 3 presenters. First and foremost, we have Mr. Ulrich Haider, press spokesperson of Orchestras of Change Germany. And Mr. Haider will talk for about 10 minutes. And next, we will hear from Ms. Louisane Roy, co-director of La Réserve des Arts France, who will talk about reusing materials, reinventing creative processes. And she will talk for 10 minutes. Last but not least, we will hear from the CEO of Miyeok, Ms. Chang will speak about their solar technology. When it comes to sustainable art, we wonder what the perspectives of these experts are. So I very much look forward to the presentations, and a Q&A will follow the presentations. If you're watching us online, please leave us the questions on the comment section. And if you're here in person, you can also send us questions. Then, without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Haider for the presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Ulrich Haider. I'm Associate Principal Horn Player of Munich Philharmonic Orchestra. And also I'm press spokesperson of the Orchestras of Change Germany. It's an association I will introduce to you. But first I would say I have visited South Korea for several times with my orchestra. Maybe it's interesting that I also make Taekwondo. I'm a black belt. I make this for more than 20 years now. And also I'm very interested in the system of Korea, and especially Taekwondo, because I try to apply the teaching and the examination system of Taekwondo to the music. For me, it's very interesting because the focus is on the development more than to one single skill as normal in music. But that's another point, maybe for another meeting, a very interesting point. But today I will introduce you the Orchestras of Change Germany, Orchester des Wandels Deutschland. Okay, let's try to share the screen. Do you see? Yes. Okay. The Orchestra of Change Germany has a slogan, climate protection, that's music to our ears. So you see here the pictures of 30 professional German orchestras, and we all work together for climate protection. So who we are? We are a network of professional German orchestras single musician and internationally recognized scientists. And we work together to share our intention. We would like to connect the climate protection with culture in a useful and sustainable way. So what do we do together? We have 4 pillars of our work. The first pillar is that we see climate protection as part of our cultural mission. So we create new concert formats, we plan for the future of the arts, and we inspire our audiences to engage in protection of the environment. That's a very important point. The second pillar is that we support regional and global climate activities. There we have one matter of the heart. It's the rainforest afforestation in Masuala, Madagascar. In Masuala, we work together with the Zoo Zurich and with the Wildlife Conservation Society to support the people in Masuala to rebuild the rainforest. Some of these sweetened woods used in the making of our instruments, so the protection is a thing of heart for us. Here you see some pictures how it works in Masuala. We try to rebuild the rainforest, I told to you. And it's all working very near to the people in Masuala, so they get a new life space, their old life space back maybe. The third pillar is to reduce our own carbon footprint in the orchestras. And there we have to look to different ways. And I will show you the most effective steps for orchestras to reduce the carbon footprint. And I told you, we have different orchestras. For opera orchestras, it's very important to optimize the energetic balance of the buildings. Here you see the opera house in Nuremberg. They are very active, the musicians over there, to reduce thousands of tons carbon dioxide with better energy insulation, with changed lamps to LEDs, and with optimizing heating and air conditioning. Almost always the costs are amortized after a short period of time, and that's a very important point for the politics to act. If we look to symphonic orchestras, a very important point is to optimize touring. We have some examples. If you use economical aircraft types, you can save hundreds of tons carbon dioxide. If you use flexible and lightweight cases, you can save space, weight, costs, and carbon dioxide. And of course, if you choose hotels with a focus of sustainability. Compensation is also a step, the last one, but for us also an important one. Our fourth pillar is that we try to be a part of a growing network with associations, scientists, and professionals in climate protections. Here you see some partners of us. The Helmholtz Klimainitiative is a big association of scientists in Germany. So we also work together with the Wildlife Conservation Society. You saw it in Masuala. We work together with Ebenholz. It's an association of instrument makers, and they look that they use sustainable woods, for example. We also have a good connection to the Aktionsnetzwerk Nachhaltigkeit. There are many cultural places and cultural networks working together. We also work with the Zoo Zurich and with the Union of the Musicians in Deutschland, the Deutsche Orchestervereinigung in Germany. So together, we inspire each other. that's a very important point. We are 30 orchestras and everyone has an idea and we change the ideas. And so we have a lot of input from every German city. And so we can create a lot of ideas and we help us each other. We also created our own compensation platform. It will run in a few months, maybe. And it's a very good way to learn about compensation and about the, how to do it right. And so we have a lot of very inspiring people in our organization. We also make our own musical projects. Here you see a picture of a CD production with people from all the orchestras of Change. So musicians of different orchestras meet and talk, and of course, sustainability is a theme in our talks. We also organize climate activities. So this was, I introduced you the Orchestra des Wandels Deutschland e.V. and maybe some orchestras in South Korea will follow us. It's also very interesting for us if orchestras interested to connect to us and that we share our inspiration. And yes, thank you for listening. And for questions, I'm also available after the next presentations. Thank you very much.
Yes, so that was Ulrich Haider, our first speaker. So after all the presentations, we are going to have a Q&A session. If you have any questions or comments for our artists or speakers, please feel free to leave your questions on the chat room through the YouTube channel. And you can also use the open chat room of Making Lemonade 2.0 for our offline participants. Now, moving on to our second presentation. It's a presentation by co-director Louisane of La Réserve des Arts France.
Hi, hello everybody. Maybe if the techniques can put my presentation, please. Thank you. But first, thank you for the invitation. I'm super glad to talk with you today. I'm French, so I will do my best with my English, and thank you for the Korean translation. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So I'm co-director of La Réserve des Arts, and more precisely, director of the South Antenne based in Marseille. I'm also a space designer, specialized in urban alternatives. I grew up in Morocco and I studied vernacular architecture. Just in case some people doesn't know what it is, and to do a huge summary, vernacular is everything that is related to a really specific localization. And in Morocco, it was about transmission and earth architecture. But back in 2016, I was just graduated and I tried to figure what and how to transpose these knowledges in Paris, where I was living. And I started to review what is designer and what is its purpose. Should we build stuff? How are we going to build stuff, and so on? And there I realized the materials that we have that we can build with are all the waste that we are producing. And that's how I discovered La Réserve des Arts. Can we move to the next slide, please? La Réserve des Arts is a non-profit organization that collects, sorts, inventory, valorize, even sometimes glamorize materials that used to be considered as waste in companies and cultural establishments. Our outlook is to try to make materials revalorization become a specific French excellency in France, but also around the world. Our purpose is to reduce culture and creation carbon footprint by reinventing the creative process. And our frame is to be a resource for the cultural sector in the appropriation of reusing materials and eco-conception. Now we are in Paris since 14 years, Paris and Pantin, and now almost 2 years in Marseille. We made the bet at La Réserve des Arts that artists, creatives, and cultural actors are the one that have and can be a true impact to raise awareness and can be the change of global sustainability. That's why we do everything that we can to sensibilize and help them to produce differently. Maybe we can move to the next slide, please. For the presentation, it's just images of Marseille, La Réserve des Arts in Marseille. It's always super hard to talk about La Réserve des Arts when you don't have it in front of you, so I just figure I will put some pictures. But yeah, concretely, how do we work? So a fashion brand, for example, a museum, a movie production, just a simple company are going to call us because they have to clear out their scenography, their set designs, scraps, order surplus, such as wood, leather, glass, metal, textile, and so on. Then all the materials arrive in our warehouse, so in Marseille or Pantin, to be redistributed only to those who need it the most. So the students, the individuals, and collective cultural professionals. So to be a member of La Réserve des Arts, you have to justify that you are learning in an architecture school, for example, or that you have your own company as a, I don't know, fashion designer, for example. We also have big workshops. So basically you can come empty-handed to La Réserve, just an idea, just a project, and you will find materials, a place to work with professionals, machines. But you can also be trained on eco-conception and eco-fabrication. And also we are trying to give all the key to be a professional in cultural circular economy. And finally, you will find almost 8,000 members on the entire territory of France that have their own specialty and knowledge that you can share with and maybe work with. In Marseille, we have a little specificity. We have artist residency that we challenge to reuse specific materials such as rugs, samples, and so on that are massively used, especially for events, for example, but are also super hard to reuse. And they're trying to innovate and find new things that they can do, for example, with the rug, the carpet. Maybe the next slide, please. For a company, when you choose where you put your waste, it's not only an outlet. It's really choosing where you put your commitment. And with La Réserve des Arts, we hope that we support creation and eco-conception, that you limit the waste of resources that are becoming more and more rare and expensive for humans and for the environment, especially with everything that is happening right now. And you are united to precarious professionals and you support a local, super local and circular economy. Just to give you a few numbers, in 2021 in Paris, we collected 730 tons of materials. We sold 402 tons of them with a 90% of recovery rate. And the rest is basically storage in our warehouses, shops, so in Pantin and in Paris. And in Marseille, it was the first year of our activity. So we collected 55 tons of materials. We sold 4 tons of them, but with a 99% recovery rate, because basically when we started, it was an empty warehouse. So we decided like, okay, we're going to keep it and take the time for all the materials we reuse. Also to give you a little number, so in Pantin, it's a 3,000 square meters warehouse, and in Marseille, it's a 850 square meters. In Paris and in Pantin, the association is working a lot with the fashion and luxury industry, massive producers and users of materials, but also good materials, good quality of materials. Just to give you an example on an important fashion show, like a big brand, even if we use trucks, to go to from the place they are making the show to La Réserve des Arts, we do have pickups. The fact that we reuse the materials, the fact that we don't send them to the trash, the fact that we don't produce new materials, we are going to avoid 100 goings and comings flights from Paris to New York, which is 4,585 times what a mature tree can absorb. Maybe we can move to the next slide, please. In Marseille, we are more trying to sensibilize and support the ecological transition in the film industry, because the southern region is putting a lot of energy and money to be attractive for film productions. And even if it's producing a lot of what we call positive externalities, the more you produce movies, the more you're going to produce waste. And it's important to have an idea when you're going to develop a new project, to have in mind, okay, we have solutions, it exists solutions. So if you develop a cultural project, you have to find the circle project that is going to come with. And as we're talking about fashion industry, we also have to have more than a look in the other industries. They need materials, so why not use second-hand one? They are going to produce waste, so why not reuse them? And with La Réserve des Arts, we are going to locally deal with the materials. They are not going to cross the world. We are going to extend their lives, and it's going to create jobs. Next slide, please. And since this morning, maybe almost night for you, is about best. Maybe we're not the best, but I hope we're inspiring or exemplary practices in cultural startups, even if we are not a non-profit organization, but kind of a startup, especially here in Marseille. I also wanted to talk to you about other projects that you can find in France, but also around the world. And also after, maybe you can tell me if you have a similar project in Korea. But La Réserve is based on an American project that, as far as I know, is maybe the oldest cultural recycling warehouse, born in the 80s in New York. In France, I don't know exactly, but we are like 9 project members of the RESAC, which is the National Federation of Cultural Recycling Centers. And every day, almost, a new one is contacting us to join. And last year, I accompanied a company in Milano, in Italy, which now has the famous name Meta, but they are very similar from us, except that they're a company. They do a refined selection of the materials, also because one of the main stake of reusing is space, and they have a smaller warehouse. Next slide, please. I remember one of my first meeting with one of the co-founders of La Réserve, Sylvie Bétard, she told me that the project, of course, in addition with the inspiration of materials for the arts in New York, was also born from a cover magazine saying like, can art save the planet? And after almost 6 years in La Réserve, I truly believe it can be true. But who is going to save art, and who is going to help it make the change that we need to make? And last slide, please. Yeah, so just thank you for the attention, and I hope maybe one day we will meet in Marseille. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Ms. Roy. As you said, exhibitions and events or filming really generate a lot of waste, and reselling those waste in other forms was quite interesting, and I have a few questions already in my mind, and I will invite you back during the Q&A session. But before that, I will move on to the next speaker. We will hear from Ms. Chang Sung-eun, CEO of Miyeok. The floor is yours. Hello everyone, my name is Chang Sung-eun, CEO of Miyeok. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Miyeok conducts a project called Solar Cow to mitigate the energy problems in Africa and fight climate change. And I will talk about that in more detail during my presentation. Can you please move on to the next slide? Yes. So one solar cow for one school is the subtitle. And as it says, it's about providing one solar cow per school. Next. So this is what we want to address. We want to provide more education opportunities for children and also make energy more accessible for children. And I would like to show you a short video about that. Can you please play the video?
What if I tell you there's a magical way to bring my friends to school? Let me show you how Solar Cow works. Walk, Carlos. Walk, Carlos. Walk, Carlos. Walk, Carlos. Go to school. Ta-da! The secret to this magic is, with the solar milk batteries, my friends go to school where the solar cow waits for them. They plug their batteries into the solar cow. While they wait for the solar cow to charge the batteries, they can take classes and also have fun with their friends. After school, they can go home with fully charged batteries to power lights and cell phones. Thanks to Solar Cow, the house is now bright at night. Also, they no longer need to go to charging shops far from home. The solar milk batteries provide incentive for parents to send their kids to school. So my friends and their parents can all be happy.
There is something else that is special about Solar Cow. Solar Cow connects people. The solar milk batteries have their own individual ID codes, which are recorded whenever the children use the batteries. This digitizes attendance, allowing supporters to see the real impact they are making. Each little light brightens up a child's future. Come, say the magic word.
Walk, Carlos. Solar Cow, school teleporter.
As you saw from the video, those living in remote areas, we could not actually reach them in the past. However, now we actually provide electricity to homes through children. And unlike in the past, when electricity was centered around a community center or a center building, now we have decentralized electricity. And from the parents' perspectives, now they're incentivized to send their children to school because it is more beneficial than sending their children to buy kerosene. Now, can you move on to the next slide? So it provides incentive for school attendance, and about 10 to 20% is what they spend in energy. So it is a huge incentive. And this is the impact of the project. And we saw a rise in attendance rate. We saw a reduction in the usage of kerosene, and children were able to study, so they had higher self-efficacy, and they had access to ICT device. Now I would like to talk in more detail about the design. So I said that the program does provide many incentives, but we needed to design the program well to offer incentives. For example, we wanted the charging pin, we wanted to stop the trading of charging pins in the black market. So we provided customized charging pins, and we also designed it so that it charges slowly for students to study longer. And we also made it sure that individual batteries have limited capacity. And the design was fit for the local landscape, and it was a universal design that was applied across all the charging pins. And each battery has individual ID codes. So when children come to school and charge the charging pins, we are able to keep record of that and track who is charging. So how much kerosene are they reducing, and so on, can be also tracked. Now this is a new solution. The Solar Cow project as a new solution is receiving a lot of attention from global institutions, one from Germany, one from Denmark, and also it received an award in the CES event, and it was also named as one of the best inventions in 2019 in the Times magazine. And this is the P4G summit that took place last year, and we were selected as a partner project. So how can technology lead to better environment, better planet, and better life? I actually made a presentation on that during the P4G meeting. And we are continuing on our projects to fight hunger as well. And we also work with some of the CSR projects in companies, and we also receive aid from KOICA. But what matters most is that we work with the citizens. So we use different platforms in Korea to engage more citizens. And that's what we're doing. So Wadis and some other platforms are what we work with. And we also launched Miyeok. Before, even if some people wanted to be part of the project, they could not because it was maybe less accessible and approachable. But now we can have a cup of coffee together and discuss ideas. And I would like to quote one idiom in Africa. Well, to raise a child it takes a village. But what I want to tell you is that with technology like solar cow, that's to reduce kerosene, which is a cause of climate change. And it also provides more opportunities of education for children. And by expanding such project, we can do better. And it takes a village to work together on such a project. So we have Miyeok as well as other partners, including coffee brands, that are working with us to achieve that goal. And global warming can feel like it's not something closely related to my life, but I think that we live this time together. It affects everyone. So we must participate in movements that can contribute to fighting global warming. And I hope that we contribute to that movement. With that, I would like to wrap up. Thank you very much.
Yes, so with Ms. Chang's presentation, we've finished all the presentations for this showcase. And as I said earlier on, we have a Q&A session, and we're getting a lot of questions in, but we don't have enough time to address all of these questions. So I believe that we can ask 2 questions per each speaker. So it will be in the order of the presentation. So the first question for Ulrich.
During your presentation, you talked about compensation platform. So can you please clarify what compensation platform is?
Yes, if you have a carbon dioxide, if you produce carbon dioxide, you can buy some carbon dioxide certificates, which make this makes this neutral, because they invest in maybe in projects or in proceeds saving carbon dioxide. And of course, it's very important how you give money to them. And for example, if we, as Munich Philharmonic Orchestra, if we travel by plane, we pay something to Atmosphere. It's a common platform in Germany, and they invest in different projects and maybe in education for sustainability and like that. And so we make we make something better, because traveling is very important for an orchestra like mine. We are an international orchestra, so we have to go to Korea, we have to go to Japan, we have to go to America, and for this we try to use this way of compensation. But this is very complex, because you can buy very certificates, very cheap certificates, but they are not they are not really good. So you have it's a very complex a complex space for doing.
Yes, thank you very much. So it's a certificate system when you reduce carbon footprint. I have another question. So when it comes to orchestras, you have a lot of people moving at once. And within such orchestras, convincing them about sustainability and embarking them on board cannot be easy. because you have to convince so many people. I guess that sometimes it's even more difficult than convincing conference participants. So you have to see them every single day on a daily basis. So did you experience any difficulties persuading them, or any cases that you would like to share?
Yes, of course. We are many people if we go on tour, and we try to different ways. For example, if we travel in Germany or in nearer countries near to Germany, we try to travel by train, for example. For example, next month we play in Paris, and we go by train there. For the orchestra, it's a long journey of 7 hours, but we do this because going by train is much better than take a flight. But sometimes if you have concert in the evening, sometimes you must use a flight. And in this point, we try to especially reduce the luggage, the transport boxes for the orchestra. We have many instruments with us, heavy instruments, but we also have instruments possible carrying in the plane. And so we look for different ways to reduce the carbon footprint. And the idea of the orchestras of change is, if many orchestras do like this, you can save a lot of carbon dioxide, and that's the idea of us. Even if the opera orchestras do their way, altogether we can have a lot of reduction of carbon dioxide.
Thank you very much for the answer.
Now my question is for Louisane. So La Réserve des Arts is working with a lot of institutions and companies. So in the beginning, you must have had some challenges, in collecting the wasted materials. But now you mentioned about so many tons of materials that you successfully collect. So was there any incident or anecdote that you can share with us when you saw that their mindset was actually changing?
Thank you for your question. So we really have to make the difference between Paris and Marseille, because Paris is like 14 years old and Marseille not even 2. And I really saw the difference between Paris and Marseille, because at the beginning I was working in Paris, and years after years I saw how especially cultural institutions were changing their mind. Not only because they wanted to, but also because of the law. The legislation is making choice to help, to improve, to make sure everyone is going to make the step that they have to make for the ecological transition. But when I arrived in Marseille 2 years ago, I realized we have to go back to the beginning. We have to sensibilize the companies. We have to talk to the cultural institution and be like, okay, we are a different way to deal with your waste. It's not going to be harder. You just have to change the way you're working, and it's taking a lot of time. And the other thing is it's a circular economical project. So we have to deal with the waste that are actually materials, and we have also to help them have the good reflex on using secondhand materials. When you're a museum, for example, and you want to use a carpet for your exhibition, of course we can collect it at the end of the exhibition, but we can also give you secondhand materials that are going to reduce your footprint carbon on the project.
Yes. So from what you said in the presentation, you mentioned about eco-design. And eco-design has become, is this something that has become very generalized in France, or do you believe that we have some way to go? Eco-design.
I feel like it's the same thing as the collect and the valorization and the fact of reusing materials. Eco-design is also at its beginning. We still have a lot of things to think about. We still have a lot of stops, if I can say, like, you know, the legislation, the laws are still super hard, especially when we are talking about traceabilities. I'm going to take you an example. So a big museum, for example, is going to do an exhibition where we are going to, at the end, collect the carpets. As soon as it arrives inside our warehouse, it's going to become a waste. So it's going to lose its traceability, which means, for example, the paper is saying like, okay, it's it's fireproof, and it's going to take more than 5 seconds to get on fire. So, you know, everyone inside the museum are going to be able to go outside and be safe. So they're going to lose this paper, the traceability, and it's just going to become like a regular carpet, whatever. So after, when another museum wants to come to La Réserve and buy this carpet, they need the paper saying, okay, it's fireproof. And we have a lot of work to change the legislation around reusing materials to help eco-design. And then we also have, and that's why we develop the formation and we train the professional here in La Réserve, because we still have to find solutions to be more responsible inside the creation. And I feel like a real eco-designer is also someone who is going to be able to measure his carbon footprint before he even started the project, who is going to be able to choose between, I don't know, a wood made in France or a wood made somewhere in Europe, or a secondhand wood that is coming from the other side of the world. And that's what an eco-designer has to develop as a competence, you know, and not only build stuff or draw stuff. He has to learn all the cycle of a project.
Thank you very much. Now, last but not least, I would like to ask a few questions to Ms. Chang. So you actually studied art in Chicago, and you mentioned that in other conferences. And in growing the company Miyeok, has your design, the sense of your design or your background actually contributed to Solar Cow? Any positive outcomes that it generated? Yes, because the identity of Miyeok evolves around design. Our activities and the project itself has design at its core. So, of course, we talk about technology, but it is technology that is based on design. And we wanted to solve the problems in Africa in a shorter period of time. And the design helped us achieve that goal. And I think our values are well reflected in the design. Yes, thank you very much. Now, this is the last question to you. Miyeok was selected as the first ESG company in Korea because environment, child labor, education, poverty, and sustainability were addressed with your mission. And ESG has become a benchmark in Korea. And what are some of the areas we need to further work on to positively change the society going forward? We were not the first company to be selected as an ESG company. I want to clarify that. But in P4G conferences as well as other international conferences selected us as their partner. So I think that's why people think that we were selected as a first ESG company. But this social pillar is something that we embraced. And ESG is receiving much attention from people and companies. And up to date, big companies have been paying attention to ESG and changing their structure. But at the end of the day, it is about how we can transform the core of our company, and this applies to all types of companies. Yes, thank you very much for the answer. With that, I would like to wrap up the Q&A session of Showcase number 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
네, Q&A는 여기까지.
Yes, I would like to wrap up Q&A here. Now we'll move on to the artist performance by Hojun Song. So Song Hojun has actually launched a personal satellite in 2013. He surprised many with his initiative. And in 2022, he actually bought a yacht and he's on a world tour. And his performances and artworks are very special. So he managed to successfully launch a satellite individually, which is usually done by countries. And he also, by accident, came to go on a yacht journey. And every time he is surprising us with wonderful artworks. And today, his artist performance is Miyeok Graffiti. Actually, Miyeok is considered as a blue maritime carbon. And blue carbon has the ability to absorb carbon in the sea, and it has a lot of potential for the future. So the Miyeok Graffiti actually is about foraging natural seaweed, and it talks about eco group that is in the boundaries of science and art, and you'll be able to actually see a very unique perspective of the artist that transcends science, art. We're also going to have a Q&A session after the performance, so we look forward to your participation until the end. So ladies and gentlemen, now let us watch the performance.
숨쉬기가 너무 힘들어진 것 같아. 그치?
Well, it's very difficult to breathe these days. I think the CO2 concentrations are getting high. Have you heard about seaweed? It's like a plant on the waters, and people used to eat it in the past. And it's like a plant in the sea. It's very excellent in getting rid of CO2. Seaweed, yes, I've heard about it. My uncle in his village, they used to grow seaweed. So why don't we try calling my uncle, okay? Yes, hello. I am from Fisheries Seed Research Institute. My name is Park Yong-bin. So our research Institute is in charge of aquaculture development, and we're also operating an algae seed bank. And as for the varieties that we develop, so we are focused on fusiformis, and as for improving the varieties, we're trying to improve the variety of kelp seaweed for abalone food and human food. And to secure the DNA of algae in Korea, we are preserving the seed. So we cannot actually preserve all the seeds of the algae that are available. So out of the seeds that we can preserve, the algae that we're focusing, the key ones are the ones that we have. So we have about 14 species, 281 varieties of seaweed kelp or algae. So as for Wando Yaksan, so it has a very special topography. So unlike the islands nearby, when it rains a lot of minerals get mixed in the water and they flow into the ocean. And because of these minerals in the sea, a lot of seafood, including the abalone, can grow further. So as for the Wando Island, there are lots of medicinal herbs, and it is actually known for a lot of its treatment, therapeutic herbs. So what you're watching right now are the pores under microscope of seaweed pores under microscope. And as these pores or spores or sporelings grow, there is the female, and it's split into female and male. So this is the male, which is thinner than the female. So it's the gametophyte. And the female and the male gametophyte are actually mixed together. And actually we use a very precise machine to actually divide the female gametophyte from the male gametophyte. And we actually manage them, collecting them separately. So what you're seeing is that you're seeing the plane at the back of the seaweed. So you can see there is the seaweed leaf and the stem in the middle. And this part is the ear of the seed and also the sporling. And what's mature is the color is uneven. And if it's not immature, not mature, then the color is very transparent. So what we're trying to find is get the mature ones so that they can pop the spores. So that's the kind of seaweed that we're looking for.
So is that it? Yes. Can you please push it this way? Please be careful. We don't want to break it. No, you did a great job. Can you give us some bonus for doing a great job? Well, you can make seaweed soup with this when you go back home. We have to make sure that we maintain the right humidity. Is this enough? It might be a bit heavy. So we started from Wando, Yaksan. We collected the sea mustard and we transport that to Jeju Island. And that's because we want to spread the spores of this seaweed. And we want to make use of the current in Jeju Island so that it flows to the Pacific Ocean. That is why we brought this to Jeju Island. As you can see from the map, this is the sea current. It flows from west to east. And well, today, as I started my boat, it was still flowing eastward. Can you please maybe raise the volume of the video? We arrived in Udo Island and we're getting ready to spread the spores. So to spread the spores of the sea mustard, I'm here in Udo Island now for 4 days. The ears of the seaweed were put under much stress, and I'll take one by one to release them to the water. Now we see the white spores coming out of the seaweed. I can visually see it. And these seaweed ears will spread the spores, and we only have the mature species with us here. So please go to the Pacific Ocean and beyond. You can't really see it, but it's very sticky, and the color is not even, which means that it is ready to spread the spores. Now it will travel to the Pacific Ocean, reach the US, North America, and I hope that they will grow. They will be healthy and grow strong. And next time when I have the luxury to do so, I would like to do this in the northern Pacific island. Can you please ask me any question? It was very tough to collect the seaweed. So how do you feel right now? Well, yeah, before people used to eat this, but now, and they still do, but seaweed have a hard time breathing and living in the ecosystem. But we were able to locate the specific seaweed in Wando, and maybe it can provide a signal and contribute to fighting the crisis that we are faced with in terms of environment. I hope that one day I can travel to Mars. Well, I hear that about 30 to 40 years ago, there was seaweed. I never actually ate seaweed. Well, this is a future documentary, so it is for the future generations and the people from abroad who have never tasted seaweed. So this is a future documentary. So yes, 30, 40 years ago, we did taste seaweed, but not anymore. So we are part of the future, yes. So please preserve the wild seaweed in Wando. We'll see you soon. Let's go. We will now return.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. Yes, so that was Miyeok Graffiti by Hojun. And because of the narrations of the artists, we were able to better understand And we are joined by Hojun through Zoom. Please say a few words to our audience. First of all, thank you very much for watching the Miyeok Graffiti at this late evening. And we shot a lot of videos and images, and we were editing this video until the last minute, just before the conference, but I hope you enjoyed the video. You're currently in a yacht, right? Yes, I'm inside a yacht. And when I mentioned about your yacht project, now it's time to leave the land. Actually, you started it in 2021, not 2022. So I'd like to make a slight correction there. So for that project, it's about, it's about the sea. And now you're in a yacht, so we're not going to have a Q&A on the sea. So you said that project is a sustainable project that talks about the future of the sea. And isn't it very difficult to join us today through Zoom because of the internet connection? Is it okay? Actually, I do have some difficulties, but actually, in Korea, I think the situation is not that bad in terms of connection. And actually, the connections get cut off between Jeju Island and the inland area, but we use some special equipment to solve that problem. So now let us move on to the questions regarding Miyeok Graffiti.
I have many questions in my mind, but first and foremost, I would like to ask you a question about the title. Yes, I know what Miyeok stands for, but what about graffiti? Can you please elaborate on that part? Most of the time, when we say graffiti, it's about this person who wants to really show and display his or her existence with a specific style of art. And art, well, just like that, well, seaweed, they grow on stones or on boats, and they will travel along the sea current, and they will create their own forms. And it looks like graffiti, so that's where the name comes from.
So regarding the Making Lemonade Conference 2.0, I would like to find the common denominator between this conference and Miyeok Graffiti. So our conference is focused on the theme of sustainability. So sustainability and the climate change. When you hear these keywords, it seems like it's talking about like a mega discourse. But it seems like you have chosen miyeok or seaweed as a motif for this mega trend because it's something that Koreans are very familiar with. So how did you come to link sustainability to seaweed, miyeok? So we continue to talk about sustainable art, sustainable culture, sustainable society. And given all these issues, the perspectives I had was that, I'm not a perfect person, and the things I'm wearing and what I'm eating are impactful on the environment. They have an impact on the environment. And that is why a lot of people, including me, are living in a state of irony where whatever we do is going to have an impact on the environment. So in that situation, if we want to preserve our planet and talk about sustainability, I thought about what would be the right approach. And since I'm in a very ironic situation that as an artist, whatever I do is going to have an impact on the environment, and to deal with some sensitive and heavy topic, I wanted to add some fun element and comic element to it. And while thinking about that, I did some research on seaweed or Miyeok. And if I were to talk about sustainability and environment with Miyeok, I thought to myself, well, maybe, I don't know how to say it in Korean. Maybe it's not going to be in a preaching tone, but in a more interesting tone that I can send a message. Yes, because you have to send the message of sustainability, and it can actually make you a preacher. So I think that you wanted to approach this topic in a very witty manner. I think that's very interesting. Thank you.
Now moving on to the next question. You're now traveling on a yacht. Before, when you're on the sea, unlike when you're on the land, you get to think deeper. And I read something that you wrote about that. And you continue your life on the yacht. And is there any specific topic that motivates you to think and explore further? And did your perspective change after your life in the yacht? Well, yes, it triggers me to really think deeply, but to be able to do so, I have to travel far away. But now it's a maintenance time, so I cannot travel far. So it's not the time for deep reflection for now. And I work a lot, so it keeps me busy and I have no time to think. But on the flip side, it helps you not to think at all. And now, to leave the land and to be on a yacht, it requires determination, and you have to make sure that you don't get, you have to overcome being seasick. So a lot of things to overcome as well.
Thank you for that answer. We also have a question from our online participant. I would like to read out the question. So in your title, you used the Korean word for seaweed. So you transcribed the word Miyeok. So is there a reason you used the Korean word in English transcription? So I believe that Miyeok is very fit to talk about like climate and climate change. And the first inspiration came from the opening of Venice Biennale because I wanted to make a Miyeok soup during that time. Because in some countries, Miyeok is considered as an foreign species. But in Korean, we consider Miyeok as a very important food. And we actually eat Miyeok soup when a child is born. So the mother eats Miyeok soup when a child is born. So I wanted to actually give a little bit of an interesting twist to the perspective of the West. And thinking about that, I realized that it was better to go with the Korean word of Miyeok in English. So instead of saying seaweed. So through this project, I wanted to promote more about Miyeok, but there is also an ironic twist to it, but that's something that I need to work further on. Thank you.
In the interest of time, I would like to ask the last question. So every single time you create very fresh perspectives and new work, creative work, and will we be able to see, when will we be able to see your next work? Well, there is this project that I was involved in, but then I got this offer from Making Lemonade, this ask from Making Lemonade. But then my next project is to measure, for instance, water temperature and wind with this machine that I want to attach on my yacht. So I am actually making some changes in my yacht. And by May or June, I will be able to install that small equipment and travel around and meet as many people as possible. I believe that the COVID situation will subside by then, and I believe that we'll be able to enjoy your work better. Thank you very much for your time. Yes, thank you. It was fun. Thank you.
So with that, we have concluded all the programs for Making Lemonade 2.0. So through this conference, we were able to interact with many artists and professionals from the artist community from France, Germany, and Korea. So we talked about sustainability and art, and they themselves can become part of a mega dialogue and discourse. And I believe that we should continue to be able to discuss and draw insights going forward, which we were able to do through this year's conference. And I think with the Arts Council Korea's participation today, the programs for Making Lemonade 2.0 was more enriching. And if you're given lemons, make lemonade out of it. I think that this phrase has a lot of implications for us as we face the challenge of climate change, and we're in the need of urgency to seek solutions. And as the arts and cultural community, we have to seek practical solutions to address the incumbent challenges. Through Making Lemonade 2.0 conference, we were able to make a very meaningful step in turning crisis into opportunities. So art, culture, and technology could get together and make meaningful changes for the future. Thank you very much for your participation.